Yeah, but I have to. Hello. I need to jump on another call like right now because I'm leading the next call. But thank you, Andrew. Lloyd, this presentation was amazing. I'm definitely going to watch it again because I learned so much, and you're just doing incredible, incredible work. I'm just floored. My mouth is wide open. And I'd like to just let you know that I was recently in Norway and got to see 3 standing bubble pods, including the University of Life Sciences in Norway, where I got to meet the university researcher, an Ethiopian native PhD, who is studying biogas digestion and has hooked up the biogas digester to the pod system and is creating biochar from the biogas digestion with the wastewater management. So I just sent this recording to him, and I look forward to connecting him. His name is Malesi, and I look forward to connecting him to the group. Everyone, please, if you can, join the Mother Earth Discord. Jason asked an excellent question about certificates. This education is so valuable, and I will talk to Lloyd. I think we need to be handing out certificates for this attendance for these types of things. Please join the Discord. I've made lots of different channels where people can participate in different discussions, and we can all communicate across one channel. I did join all the LinkedIn groups, but I found that the Discord network is best for communicating in one place across multiple channels. So I hope everyone will join. And I got to run, but Lloyd, I love you. Andrew, I love you. All of you, this was incredible. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
Love you.
Yeah, so the LinkedIn groups are mainly to identify the professionals and the practitioners around the world who have an interest in these various topics and subjects. They're not really meant to be for communications. This is actually what we're using WhatsApp, but we may migrate over to Discord if that's a better platform. But what we want to do is identify those practitioners who have those skills, who've been doing this work over the past at least a decade or more, just as I had been supporting this through Biochar Ontario. And what we would like to do, of course, is develop this program. It's been on the books for quite a while. I did this particular presentation in January, but it's based on a presentation I did originally, I believe in 2016 or 17 at Harvard University. So these are the original slides from that presentation made at Harvard. And that was with an organization that was also international. It was the, I'm trying to remember the name of the organization. It was the Harvard program for HPAIR was called, HPAIR, Harvard Program for International Relations, I believe, something like that, introduced to me by Dr. Brad Bass at Environment Canada, also a professor at the University of Toronto in the Department of Education there. And I'm not sure he has a direct affiliation with OISE, as Stephanie Schuller does, but definitely all of these initiatives of the biochar we were doing in Canada were very much focused on the University of Toronto and the Faculty of Forestry, which took on the mandate to promote biochar with their partners in, for instance, there was a forest up in Northern Ontario that was doing demonstrations of biochar in utilization in forestry. And that's actually where I got my interest in this concept of food forests and productive forest operations that could actually be net negative in terms of CO2 emissions, because they were demonstrating a sawmill that was using a pyrolysis gasifier to produce energy to actually run the sawmill that had a biochar co-product, where they were just using the wood chips from the sawmill operations to power the sawmill. That was a very interesting setup they had. I'm not sure it's still operational. I think their issue was, again, where's the market? What is the market for biochar? Which is, again, why we created this kind of smart food program, to say, we need to create markets. If we don't have market pull for the biochar products, we cannot create markets for biochar. Nobody's going to utilize biochar if there's no carbon market that's paying them. Let's try to do both, of course, but we need market pull. So that was this.
Well, on that note, Lloyd, you have quite a few new people here, but I do want to say that it was in 2008 through the Academy that I believe I connected with you in biochar and your work there that eventually led me to Adam Greenwell. So I've been at this for a long time. There was no market then, but as Jenny is telling you now, there is in fact a breakthrough, particularly with the challenges we're facing on a global scale, not just for energy, but food. So I would encourage you to think about ways we can move that forward. But I'll turn the floor over to our guests, perhaps to be introduced, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Lloyd. Ball's in your court. Thank you.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I've been promoting as well, of course, all of what we call the open source regenerative climate smart infrastructure, which of course includes the gardens, includes the forests, includes the farms, and includes this actual habitats, what we call them, what's called living habitats of the solar roof solutions that Jenny was talking about earlier. And so this is part of the solution that we can help to achieve the SDGs by bringing all of this together under a program where we can certify all of this infrastructure, whatever it is that we're doing in our local communities, where we can localize these goals that we're trying to achieve, these current SDGs.
Right, but again, you have several guests here. I think it's important that you acknowledge them, but I'm going to have to step off. I'm going to leave it with you guys, but wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm turning it over to you, Lloyd.
Yeah, okay, so thank you. Andrew, if anybody would like to unmute themselves, maybe put up your hand or ask a question. I'm here for the next little while as well.
And check well, go ahead.
I am sorry I was late, but I might miss your presentation. The thing about biochar is that.
Oh, introduce yourself, please. Each speaker, please introduce yourself, and if you can, at least show your video briefly, because we are streaming, and it would be good to know who's speaking. Thank you, Erwin. Go right ahead.
Okay. Okay. My question is basically, first of all, how come very seldom people, when they're talking about gasifier, they seldom say to produce biochar? It seems to be not very easily to say they produce biochar. I only like reading gasifier. Secondly, if I would like to produce very cheap gasifier for stove, especially in the poor area, so that we can have the biochar that maybe they can use for their soil, or maybe they can even sell it out. And then to have the gas also, the synfuel gas. So the thing is, can we make it in a very cheap situation? For example, people have been showing using very old tank, stainless steel tank. Can we use even maybe a brick, building brick, and then maybe some kind of a tank inside so that you have some conduction easily and distribution of the heat inside? And then thirdly, in order to control this gasifier, maybe we should have an intermediate tank that will save or collect the gas and then control the gas into the stove. So
yeah, well,
yes.
there are a couple questions here, Erwan. I want to recognize you, being Erwan Rusli from the Rusli Institute in the U.S. Since you did not introduce yourself, but
I'm sorry.
We generally do know you, but other people may not know who you are.
Okay, my name is.
So we have been working, just to let everybody know, we have been working with Erwan. He does his poverty alleviation project Zoom webinars every Wednesday, starting at 12 noon Eastern. And so what we want to do, of course, is integrate some of these programs into the Rusli Institute poverty alleviation projects that he is doing, these pilot projects. specifically, I believe, in 3 countries, in Uganda, in Kenya, and I believe the third one is in South Africa, possibly. And so what we would like to do is see if we can produce biochar in some of these farms, projects that they're doing. I guess the question he asked is related to the stoves. So there are producers of fairly low cost stoves out there. And so, sorry, that I do see the third one, DRC. Patrick has noted that it's not South Africa, it's DRC, that the third Bristol Institute project, pilot project is moving. But with regard to the stoves, there are producers out there who are making them fairly cheaply. Of course, what we want to do is subsidize those first ones at least, so that the users can get used to the utilization of these stoves. And so there are other ways of making them. You mentioned that can we utilize different local materials such as bricks or other things? Yes, so there are various types of biochar production technologies out there, plans, many of which are open source and available if one does a quick Google search even of biochar production solutions or technologies. So there are many things out there that can be done. I mentioned one of them in my presentation, the Kontiki, which is something that's being used here in Canada. There are something called there's something called blanking from my mind at the moment, but there are a number of different ways of doing it that are clean versus the historical way of making charcoal, which was to basically pile up the biomass in a mound and cover it with dirt and set it on fire. That was the old way. Those are not very clean. They can be rather dirty, create a lot of smoke. There is a top lift system, and that is actually the system used by the Kontiki method, again developed in Japan originally. They were likely seeking some way to make charcoal that was cleaner, since the old ways of making charcoal did pollute and caused a lot of smoke and probably much irritation of people's lungs as a result of producing too much charcoal in those old-fashioned methods. So we are, of course, not promoting the production of charcoal as a fuel, but as a soil amendment, and specifically looking at the cleaner technologies. And of course, we would like if many of these corporations who are members of the UN Global Compact could help to subsidize these, where we could even set up local manufacturing operations in some of these communities. And that is a discussion I've had before with, for instance, Dr. Paul Olivier, who's in Vietnam. He's been producing these stoves, beautiful stoves made out of very high quality stainless steel. And so he can ship parts that can be assembled locally from Vietnam to any country in the world, but they need to set up a business of manufacturing these stoves, and of course people in the local community need to be taught how to use them and how to use the biochar as well, which is the main obstacle, is people just don't understand what this stuff is, how to use them properly, not just how to use the stoves properly, but also how to use the biochar in a way that's beneficial, and then to be able to document their use of biochar in a way that allows them to get certifications, which would then allow them to get those PEGI payments as a result. Where the easiest way, of course, to do this would be to set up a cooperative in the local community that could then be the local hub of education, training, and even manufacturing of these devices. So there's a long process that needs to be done, which is why we are focusing on first on the establishment of these community hubs, the UnityNet community gardens, and those education and training infrastructure, which needs to really go in first before we can really implement a lot of these programs. So absolutely, let's try to create some pilot projects with you, Erwan, as we move forward.
Well, I'm thinking, Lloyd, it's a lot of advantage if we can use this one. For example, if it is low cost, let's put the subsidy in terms of carbon credit. You know what? If we can show that we can produce biochar, especially the one I would like to point out, the Philippine unit that they use this, they produce, they feed continuously. They take out the biochar from the bottom. I think I want to looking right now, but if we can produce this continuously and then take out the biochar at the bottom of the stove, that will be great, because then you can even have carbon credit for the biochar. And then if we can make it a very low cost, like I mentioned, from maybe some clay or some kind of brick, maybe that credit can be used as a positive income for the farmers, so that we can claim that they mitigate the carbon problem, and then have credit from the maybe developed countries. So this is something that maybe we have to pursue.
Yeah, so it's obviously this is again a reason why I've created many of these discussion groups, to have focused conversations around these ideas of potential carbon credits. But of course, actually, since the beginning of the creation of the Canadian Biochar Initiative, we had talked about carbon credits, about carbon payments. This is actually it ends up being a fairly expensive and complicated thing to try to do. Until it is very well established or is being somehow regulated by governments, where often the private sector is not really interested in doing these programs unless they can see a significant benefit for their own bottom line. Often is the case. And so unless the carbon payments are actually fairly significant as well, and things are done at fairly large scale, it's often not very economically viable by itself. Now, if we can create social structures that create incentives and programs, this is again why we want to have these programs that are being developed by the IITTI, these systems of where we can incentivize people to do some of the things that we like to be done, or not just like to be done, but need to be done in many ways, because of the changing climate and the warming that's causing it to be more and more difficult to grow food in the environments where we were working before, where we're now seeing, of course, more disasters, more droughts, more floods, and significant loss of livelihood. And so the livelihood issue is going to be number one: feeding people, housing people, putting them into these programs where we can provide additional carbon credits is great, but the first point of entry and the issue we need to tackle are the basics of life. As a first step, where hopefully what we can do is integrate, for instance, these climate smart kitchens into the communities. If it can be done in the context of the Unity Garden Learning Center, where the kitchen itself then becomes a place for learning and developing some of these programs, that can help I think, move forward a lot of the things that you've been talking about in terms of testing out, for instance, continuous production of biochar in what's actually called a BLDD, a bottom lip downdraft gasifier, which exists, which allows for the possible continuous production of biochar. But again, it's something where many of these programs have been, or these technologies have been developed and tested extensively, especially by the communities of stove producers, including actually a gentleman that I worked quite a bit with in Illinois. He's a retired teacher, in fact, that just took up a hobby of creating clean cook stoves. And actually, I studied with him for many years. I went to Illinois at least a couple of times, and as well, I went to work with him in Massachusetts to help promote his solutions, which were these small gas-fired stoves that were made with very rudimentary materials. Quite clean as well, but it is a matter of setting up the education and training for local people to understand how to build this stuff and how to use these materials and how to create productivity out of it in a way that can be leveraged by especially these big, whether it's governments or corporations, in a way that benefits them. And so that is where we're always looking at the value chains. And so yes, let's continue the conversations. Let's continue to build these systems, the carbon credit programs, for instance, again, with companies like Carbon Shot Earth. That's actually part of what I originally talked to Mark Basangi about when I met him last year. And so that was an initial conversation where he had approached me and said, "Look, I want to do biochar at scale here in Canada." And I said, "Well, we tried once already. I think it might be a little bit early to say let's go to scale with biochar, but we can probably go to scale with something like a distributed network of learning centers where we can start teaching local people in local communities how to make biochar in these smaller devices, rather than setting up a large scale operation like the company that had been producing biochar from their sawmill and the sawmill waste. Can we do this instead with rice husks, by distributing 10,000 small cook stoves across a single country like Uganda or DRC or Kenya or Nigeria, as a pilot project where we get 10,000 different community kitchens set up, where we can really test this whole program out and build the backbone for something that could be replicated across all of Africa. And so that is the concept that we are trying to develop, where it's not centralized, it's decentralized, and we're creating a whole heck of a lot more jobs than a single plant that might employ 2 or 3 people. So I'm hoping that others may want to introduce themselves and or have some additional questions. And if not, we can always end our day today. I'm seeing it is about 12:25 in the afternoon on my side over here in Canada, which means we've been on for approximately an hour and a half. I'd like to ask a few people that I do recognize on the call today, such as Stephanie Schuller, to also introduce herself, if she's available to do so.
Hi, yes, thank you, Lloyd, for your presentation. it's crucial, you know, that we have these alternatives, and you were before you ahead of your time, but now it's, you know, so many communities are in peril, and we're trying to put it together, all of us, you know, from UnityNet International, yourself and Mark and Andrew and Erwan and Heinrich and everyone on these calls. We're trying to put it together, how to feed everybody, how to have energy, how to, you know, not have an impact on the climate, a negative impact on the climate. And it's so important, and the learning is so crucial. We need to come together as communities, and we need to empower, you know, the women, the communities, the children, everybody, so that we can have regenerative food, you know. And as you said, you know, the food, the forests, the farms, the fields, the gardens, there's food everywhere, and we need to have the learning. We need to engage the elders who know the learning and who know the medicine from so much of the food that's possible. And we need to do it now, and we're putting it together. So grateful for your chat.
Thank you, Stephanie. We'll continue this, and of course, we have a plan to also establish one of these Unity garden learning centers here in Ontario, whether it's going to be here in the Greater Toronto area or perhaps in the Ottawa Valley. We're not sure just yet, but we are having continuous discussions about this. And sorry, Stephanie, I know you had a MAP Zoom call last night that I was going to attend, but I just needed to create the Eventbrite page for tomorrow, which again, I want to remind everybody starts at 10 o'clock.
That's no problem that you missed it. Some people were on it who were fairly new. This is for Maui Aloha Project Eco Village Initiative. We're trying to start in Ontario, Canada. We're trying to start in Maui and around the world. And it's a living, learning, and healing initiative. And actually, two of the people that were on, they live on 200 acres in Ontario, and they want to connect and do more climate conscious activities. They've got forestry, they've got wetlands. So they've invited us to come help and create programming, which we will use at UnityNet and share. But one of the people who lives on the farm, actually, he is a technology designer, and his particular passion is looking at solar and other technologies. So I know he'd be interested in this particular conversation as well. And he wants to really be a forerunner in Canada and to be able to share that around the world as well. So every day we collect people who have the knowledges and the learning, and we'll start sharing that with everybody.
Well, this is the idea, is that what we try to do is learn from each other, learn best practices, and share them among each other, so we can all improve ourselves, improve our communities, improve our environment, and make a better world ultimately. So actually, perhaps I could ask you, Ismailihu Shifu, if you would like to introduce yourself as well. Sorry if I butchered your name.
Yes, actually, it's Ismailihu Shifu. I'm attending the meeting from Cameroon in Africa, West Africa to be precise, and I'm very, very happy to be part of the team, especially considering the rich contributions from the various panelists. I don't know if there's any other particular thing you would like to ask me.
No, I'm actually just because I didn't recognize her name. I was hoping, actually, I'm glad to see that there's somebody from Cameroon on this call today, and that you also speak English, because I know that Cameroonians are typically speaking French.
Yeah. Cameroon actually is a bilingual country, like same like Canada. We speak both English and French very well fluently. Yes.
But I wanted to let you know that my journey actually I guess my original connection to Africa came through a gentleman by the name of Divine Ntiokam from Cameroon. Divine, yeah, his name Divine Ntiokam from Cameroon. He started what's called the Climate Smart Youth Network.
Okay,
so,
okay.
I got involved in that organization probably back in 2016 or so, and they were being promoted and supported by the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. Of course, the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture was started by the FAO, but was supported by the big agricultural corporations. The Monsantos and such were promoting this concept. So they wanted to, of course, move their GMOs into Africa. And that was their behind the scenes, that's what they wanted to do, right? And they said, "Oh, this is climate smart agriculture because we're promoting our death seeds."
Actually, I'm equally a youth leader. I think I attend one of the first meetings I attended. I explained to the group that I'm a youth leader. I own an organization known as Youth Action for Sustainable Development. We fight against climate change and global warming, food security, water scarcity, conflict resolutions. Remember, like I explained, Cameroon is facing serious socio-economic upheavals, socio-economic crisis that has claimed the lives of thousands of people. So, like I'm talking to you, I'm actually on ground zero. I don't know if you know why it's called ground zero. Ground zero actually is where the crisis affected area where there's a shooting every day. Just not long from now, there was sound of gunshot. I heard sound of gunshot not far from where I am. So I use my organization to sensitize the youth on the importance of peace. We equally promote local artists. We promote the culture and so on. I'm actually a youth leader. I have a member of about 63 registered youth. We have others who have not yet registered. So it is a legalized organization. It's a youth association rather, which is legalized. It's operating in Dongamantung. Dongamantung is found in the northwest region of Cameroon. And it's northwest region of Cameroon is an English part of Cameroon, English-speaking region of Cameroon, because Cameroon has two regions that speak English. We have the northwest and the southwest regions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. We should connect afterward. If you haven't put your information into the chat, so we can contact you after this call, please do so. I think that it would be useful to as well continue the conversations. I can invite you to join UnityNet Cameroon. So we do have a number of discussion groups on WhatsApp. And so there's UnityNet Africa and Diaspora, which is the main discussion group, which also has a number of regional groups across Africa. So I believe there are more than 20, I think probably around 30 of the 55 countries represented within this network. And so Cameroon is one of those countries, of course. As I mentioned, the original Climate Smart Ag Youth Network, which of course, as I mentioned, was promoting the GMOs and the large industrial agricultural solutions and calling them climate smart. But then we had a lot of conversations with this gentleman, Divine, and he eventually said, "Look, I'm just going to move forward with these guys at the it was the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture, which was an industry association. And I said, look, I don't want to be part of this. I'd rather promote some of the regenerative solutions. And so that's where I moved forward to say, let's promote regenerative climate smart food, which is what I made a presentation today about.
Okay, then I'll just provide my contact details in the chat room, and I'll be very happy to be connected, because I think it's one of the opportunities I've actually been looking for, and I will be very happy to be connected to the various organizations or regional groups that or alliances that you've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are developing a network. Basically, it's what we call a network of networks, where we come together virtually, like on these Zoom calls, but we also have ongoing discussions on these chat groups. There are associated Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, as I put in the chat earlier. We have a number of professional networks where we try to bring together all the practitioners or would-be practitioners of regenerative community, where what we are trying to do ultimately is create what we call a localized, productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So this is our, you could say, primary tagline as we move forward in trying to develop a new economy where we're looking at the post-2030 goals. We're saying Sustainable Development Goals is now. Sustainable Development Goals started in 2015. They end in 2030. What happens after that? That's only 7 years away or so. Where post-2030, we need a new set of goals. The UN will develop those in consultation with their partners around the world, governments and NGOs and all organizations, including corporations, will be involved in that conversation about what is the next set of goals. We are positioning ourselves as a global network of regenerative development experts and practitioners in each of our own local communities who can help to achieve those future goals, whatever they might be. So we want to position ourselves as that network to go to when the time comes. But of course, we want to demonstrate these solutions right now as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
So, okay, thank you very much, Ismailu. And we will, I think, unless there are any other questions or comments today, probably finish our Zoom call for this Thursday, October 13th, the IGU Summit, week 71, which was a special presentation about biochar and the CSF program, the Climate Smart Food Program of Science for Peace Community Sustainability Working Group that was created a few years back, and we are now going to try to move forward also in the context of the Global Unity Network, also known as UnityNet, which is of course also delivering infrastructure for education and training of people around the world, especially focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals at this time, but also on the establishment of a productive, compassionate, collaborative, regenerative economy that leaves no one behind. So thank you all for coming on today, and we will finish up our conversation. See you next week.